Hey guys, welcome to our SOC 2 School, episode 4, and I'm glad to receive you guys again this week. I'm joined by Vikas Bhatia again. Hi Vikas, how are you doing?
Brian, how you doing? Good seeing you.
Great, great. So, this week we want to talk about governance. How does
Mhm.
governance affect startups? How does a startup establish governance and a chain of command?
So, governance is quite an overwhelming. It's quite an overwhelming term in itself, right? Like the first thing you think of is rules and authorities, and like it's really overpowering. So let's break it down and make it really simple. When you set up a company, you do so against certain rules and regulations that exist. So most startups would incorporate as the Delaware C. So Delaware C has some requirements. You've got to have a chairman of the board. You've got to have a board structure. You've got to have a company secretary. You've also got to do annual filings. So at the government level, if you will, that is your governance. When we file tax returns, that is governance. So essentially, we are performing governance functions anyway. But a company someone that's going through their SOC 2 really needs to think about what's the internal governance. So I always like to think of it like, who am I accountable to? So as the CEO, if you're a very small startup, then there might just be, yourself and your co-founder. Well, one is the chairman and one is the company secretary, even though you play the role of CEO, CTO, etc. Or if you have investors, then you've got like a board or an advisory group, and essentially you need to be accountable to someone. Ultimately, we are accountable to the rules and regulations that the government sets out, the federal or state level, or at the industry level. But internal governance is just a reporting line. It's just thinking about accountability. So how do you maintain the operations in accordance with rules, regulations, best practices, and report that and create an audit trail around it?
This is excellent, Vikas. I'm really glad that you're sharing this with all the people watching. So, at the same time, we want to know something startups struggle with. How exactly do you show governance to the auditor? How do you show governance to prospective investors? How do you convince them that you are actually employing all of these things?
That's a great question. So essentially, there's an easy way to do this, and it's regular meetings and it's regular documentation. We all hate documentation, but let's say, for example, you have let's say you have an extremely small, 2 or 5 person company. Well, at least on a weekly basis, your management team should be meeting and having regular touch points. So what we've done in the past and what we've seen other people do is just have a page on a Google Share or a OneDrive or a Confluence, and just put management meeting, date of the meeting, things that were discussed, things that decisions that were made, for organizations that particularly for startups that have investors or a board. You may want to present the status of the company to the investors or the board on a quarterly basis. So you basically present, you have those meetings in your calendar, and you put together a deck and you say, here's the status of the company, here's the status of finances, here's the status of sales. So by having these kind of meeting minutes, and if you click the comments below and you tell us which templates you want, we'll happily provide access to the templates. So just make sure you like and subscribe and do all that thing. Press the bell notification. Maybe it's on that side. But it's really about having a regular cadence. It's really about having documentation, and it doesn't need to be formal. In the olden days, we think of company secretary, someone that's like literally scribing every single thing that happens. It could be a working document that says, on this date we met, we meet weekly. There's a weekly cadence for investors or advisors. We meet every quarter. These are the updates. These are their feedbacks. Just keep your communication as an audit trail, whether it's an email, whether it's a follow-on activities. But it's quite easy to do, especially if you're a startup that has a project management tool like a Jira or Asana or a Trello. because you can say, okay, every week, every quarter, every month, whatever, we need to meet these certain people, put the documentation in place, and now when the auditor asks for it, you can demonstrate.
Exactly. So this is exactly what we want to get out of this conversation. And while there are some smaller teams watching this, we want to know if you can even have governance in place with a small team. How are startups able to set this forth and work with it?
Yeah, so even if you're a two-man team, you still need to have some level of governance. Like for example, Delaware requires you to have board meetings. It requires you to document any shareholder issuance or any advisor agreements that have gone out, any contracts that have gone out. So you need to be doing that at the company level anyway. When it comes to smaller teams, just having a literally a folder somewhere that has a document that says all business decisions. And if you have the date, who was present, so you can have a table. You say this is the date, this is who was present, this is the discussion item, and this is what happened as a result of that. Uh, those logs, if you will, actually turn into very useful information, particularly as you go to raise money. If you merge with another company or are looking to exit, if you are looking to work with a larger company, they're looking for that structure, because otherwise you will come across like you don't have any structure, you don't have any formalities within your company. I completely understand that startups are really agile. There's lots of stuff going on, and you're always trying to develop code and sell, etc. But as you mature as an organization, and particularly as you go for certifications like the SOC or ISO or iTrust, you need to have that governance in place, because there needs to be boundaries on what people can do or are doing.
Right. And so this is what we wanted to touch on. You kind of mentioned it a little bit, but what are advisors and investors looking for in you showing them that you have governance? How does that motivate them to invest in your company, to join your company and help you through your journey?
So, let's break this down into two categories. So whether it's an investor or an advisor, they're committing their resources. Someone who's got 25, 30 years experience, time is valuable to them. Time is money. So whether they're investing time or they're investing money, they want to do it with as little risk as possible, or at least at a risk level that meets their risk appetite. So for example, if someone asks me to invest in their company, whether it's time or as an advisor, so time, or as an investor, so money, I want to know that the people at the helm, right, the team at the helm, are really paying attention to the legalities and the formalities of the business, because I don't want to put my time or my effort or my cash into a business that's disorganized, that doesn't meet its regulatory obligations, that could be a legal risk, a compliance risk, a financial risk. So all of these things could impact acquiring or working with advisors or investors. Just to kind of double click on that for a second, for anyone that's done a pitch competition, for anyone that's done some sort of presentation of their company, the reason why there is quite a rigid structure on what's the problem, what's the market, who's the team, what's the go to market, all of these kind of various stages that you go through on a pitch deck. You're presenting to a potential investor or an advisor that you know what you're doing. The governance is really the devil's in the detail, right? The governance is the formalities behind it. Do you actually have all of that in place? And the more mature your organization gets, the more money you raise, the bigger the company is that you work, the customers that you work with, the more you'll need to demonstrate your governance posture.
Thanks. And I hope that has helped everybody listening to this or watching it or reading it in the transcript. So I really
If
appreciate you.
not, put any comments.
Yeah, please, let us know. But thank you guys for watching. Vikas, thank you for your time, and we'll see you guys again next week.